going to be a lot of fun. It's the end of the day, but is this going to be a real treat for all of us? I'm going to say a few things about each of the panelists, and then we're going to start asking some questions. And so you be thinking about a question maybe that you want to ask or always wanted to ask of them. First is Comptroller Darlene Green. She's been the Comptroller for the City of St. Louis for 17 years, and she's run for re-election 4 times. Not only does she oversee a budget of $950 million, but she also serves as a member of the 3-person Board of Estimate and Apportionment. And A&E, and there's 3 people on that. One is the mayor, and the other is the president of the Board of Aldermen. And I think that perhaps Comptroller Green is the only woman that has been on that board. She's a tough advocate for financial interests of the citizens of St. Louis. That's always first and foremost in her mind. I serve on the airport commission with her, and I can tell you I've been most impressed with her team and her staff, and really their astute handling, particularly these rocky times, of our bonding, and of course then our refinancing of our bonding. They seem to always know exactly when the right time to do that. She's recently happily married. Her warm and friendly smile is seen most nights of the week at various civic events and meetings. Couple things I know about her. Number 1, she plays it completely by the book. Number 2, she's not easily intimidated. She always keeps in mind what she thinks is right for the citizens of St. Louis. And 3, she's not a person that fastly trusts. It's not like your instant fast friend. Trust comes slowly, but for all people where trust comes slowly, when you have that trust, it's deep. We've developed a very good relationship, and frankly, it's based on no favors. I don't ask anything of her, she doesn't ask anything of me, and we've been able to develop a really good relationship. Second is my good friend Rhonda Hamm-Niebruegge, and she spent most of her life in the private sector, so that's going to be kind of an interesting topic for you to discuss with us. And in 2010, she was appointed director of Lambert International Airport after many years, almost a whole career in the aviation industry, Ozark, TWA, and American Airlines. She raised a family here. She very much likes St. Louis, so for American Airlines, she managed their operations here for a number of years. She is the consummate professional. Most people know her because of the tornado. And she was the person to stand in front of those microphones after being out to dinner with her husband, drive up there and stand in front of and really represent us in the city nationally. I was out of town. This was national media attention for many, many days. I don't know of anybody who handles the media better than Rhonda. She's an incredible salesperson. She's great with the media because she's genuine and she really knows her stuff. She has boundless energy. And I'll tell you the other thing that I admire about her, she's got a real life. She's really is involved in a lot of things with her husband and children and has really a lot of friends. And then my dear friend Kitty Ratcliffe, president of the St. Louis Convention and Visitors Commission, my question I'm going to ask her is, she really has a job that in other cities might be 3 different people doing it. Most people don't understand she also is over the operation of the convention center and over the operation of the dome, which in itself would be separate and important positions. She has a very daunting job, and she came back at a very difficult time. She was in St. Louis, she left and has some very significant positions, came back. My question also is going to be, hey, why'd you come back and what did you find when you did? But what happened for her is things needed to be fixed. There were things that were wrong in the way that we were marketing the city. Our conventions were going down. She had to rework everything. And a couple things I'll say about her. She's smart, she's accessible, she's tough. She works harder than anybody I know. And I will tell you, I would put her schedule up against anybody at this table or the mayor of the city of St. Louis, who are all very hard workers. She knows her stuff, she's fearless, and I'll tell you what she's done. She has a tight circle of friends, many of them women, around her, who really help to support her in a lot of these tough decisions that she has to make. So Kitty, I'm going to start with you if I could, and tell us a little bit about, so you left and you had some great positions. New Orleans, I think, was the last place you were at, very successful. You were sought after nationally. It wasn't easy to get you here. Kind of what drew you back, and then once you got here, kind of what's your perception now of St. Louis?
That's a tough question, actually, because it's got many pieces to it. But thank you so much for your kind words, Kathy. I started my career at a very small town, most of you will know, about 100 miles from here. Carbondale, Illinois, is the first director of tourism for the city of Carbondale. Director, I was the only employee, so it was a fancy title. And I used to come to St. Louis for all the industry meetings. And so I'd come every month for the St. Louis MPI chapter and the St. Louis Society of Association Executives trying to get business for Carbondale. And everybody that I found here was very professional. It was a great city. I loved the community. And one of the great things about the people in our community is everybody's so nice and so welcoming. And so they very quickly, even though I was from Carbondale, they very quickly folded me into those groups. And so one day they offered me a job at the Convention and Visitors Commission in sales, doing national sales accounts for convention business. And so I jumped at the chance to move here. And I loved it here. I absolutely loved it here. But as Kathy said, I had the opportunity to take a couple of other jobs that were, there's only one organization like ours in any community. There's only one airport. There's only one Convention and Visitors Bureau in any community, and sometimes to move up, you have to move out. And I was one of 10 salespeople here, and so somebody offered me the Director of Sales and Marketing position in another city. So I did move some other places. I had some great opportunities to live in other cities and really learn my craft. And I think that really has become an advantage for me because I didn't learn just one way of doing things. I learned that you have to be able to adjust along the way to different structures and different things that are in your skill set that perhaps you might not have in another place. And so prior to coming back here, I was in New Orleans as the Executive Vice President for the New Orleans Convention and Visitors Bureau. Yes, I was there when Katrina hit. And I was there for about 8 months afterwards. And as Kathy said, they did a national search. They came to me several times. I turned them down several times, not because of St. Louis, because I absolutely love St. Louis, but because I had a really difficult and important job in New Orleans, and I just couldn't see myself breaking away from it, except like on the 3rd month or something when they had called and said, please won't you consider. I finally said something to somebody close to me, and he said, would you have taken that job if they'd offered it to you before Katrina hit? And I said, in a heartbeat. He said, then you owe it to yourself to go talk to him. And so I did. And the reason I would have taken the job in a heartbeat is because, I kind of grew up in the business here. So I had a lot of friends here, but I also got to really know the community in a very organic way. As a salesperson for the Convention and Visitors Commission, you have to be an expert in your community. You have to be able to sell your community to any different kind of customer that you have. So if you're dealing with the American Sheep Producers Council, you got to sell it one way. And if you're dealing with the National Rifle Association, you sell it a different way. But the good thing about St. Louis is we have all of the things that can appeal to any kind of group. And so I really got to learn it and fell in love with it. And I lived in the Central West End, and I spent a lot of time at Forest Park. And so that's why I wanted to come back. The job part of it was also very appealing because, as Kathy said, in most cities, there's a Convention and Visitors Bureau, which is a sales and marketing public relations organization that goes about selling convention business. But they don't actually operate the facilities. The facilities are operated, the convention center might be operated by the city, as our convention center did once many years ago. And usually the stadium where the Rams play, usually the stadium is operated by some kind of a state authority because the cost of that building is usually way too much for a city to bear. So one of the things that was really appealing about this particular job was the fact that it was all 3 jobs in one, and I just thought it sounded like fun. Kathy said I was fearless. I must have been foolish, actually.
Dan Deardorff, wasn't he part of the recruiting team?
He was.
That must have been pretty compelling.
It was really interesting because Dan was our chairman, and of course I didn't know him. When I was here in the 80s, he wasn't a part of the Convention and Visitors Commission, and even if he had been, I wouldn't have been at a level where I would have met him. So after I'd turned down several people who'd called through the search process, I finally got a call one day at my office, New Orleans. Pick up the phone, Kitty Ratcliffe. Kitty, this is Dan Deardorff. You don't know me, but thinking, don't know you? You're on television every Sunday. For Christ's sakes. I know who you are. You don't know me, but everybody says you're the person to talk to. He said, I don't know you, but everybody says. So if everybody else says it, would you please come talk? It's kind of hard to say no to Dan Deardorff. So that's where I made the call. When I got back here and I came back for the job, I was really surprised at how much had changed. And I loved St. Louis when I lived here in the 80s. Absolutely loved it. As I said, I lived in the Central West End. I spent a lot of time in Forest Park, but oh my gosh, when I saw Forest Park when I came back, it's such a spectacular jewel. You know, it was rather rugged in the 80s, as you will all recall. And so many good things. I could see so many good things happening. And so I was really excited to be a part of it overall.
Darlene, I'm going to ask you a question next, if I could. You're overseeing a lot of money, and I could be wrong on this, but in the 17 years that you've been in that office, I'm not aware of any controversy about money lost or money not mishandled or things not going right. You seem to run a very, very efficient office. Talk to us a little bit about what made you initially run for this position and kind of what motivates you now. How did you develop the skill set to be able to do what you're doing so well?
Well, thanks for that question, and before that, thank you for the introduction. It was a very nice introduction. And I'll start with the first question, that what motivated me to run for the office. You also talked about the skill set, and so I'll try to fit all of that in. I was at the time working for the City of St. Louis as its budget director. And I was the budget director for the City of St. Louis for 2 years. And when the opportunity came for me to run for the office of Comptroller, I thought about it, knowing that I had been in a really great job working for the city where I knew about how to balance the budget. I knew where all the money for the whole entire city was allocated and how it worked. And I knew that I would go to a more narrow job, going to the job of the city's comptroller. And I say narrow, I mean in terms of what I needed to know about how to allocate monies for the city. That's what I mean. Because, you know, the budget director, you just know it all. And you know where to find money when you needed it, and you knew who needed the monies and who ran out of money, and, you know, all of those kinds of things. And you knew how to direct people who had a hard time spending their money on behalf of the constituents of the city. And so in the comptroller's office, my job is strictly to pay bills on behalf of the city, to help balance the budget, to protect the city's credit, and to work on the Board of Estimate and Apportionment along with the mayor and the president of the board to actually budget on behalf of all the entire city, make those budgetary decisions. And then I say it was narrowed in terms of the function, but it really was elevated. The job function was elevated because it's a high power elected position. I mean, really, really high powered. I didn't really know at the time because my focus always have been to focus on taxpayers, focus on citizens of the city's delivery of city services and doing that best job as a budget director. Now I have to do that as your comptroller. And as the comptroller for the city of St. Louis is an independent elected position that protects the city's credit. I mean, I can declare an emergency above the mayor if I have to in order to pay a bill that protects the city of St. Louis, that kind of thing. It's very independent like that. And when you talk about it not being controversial, some of my decisions have been controversial because I have some time to disagree with the mayor, disagree with the president of the board and some of the aldermen on behalf of the citizens. Sometimes I get in favor, I'm voted in favor, and sometimes I'm not. But in all cases, I still look out for the citizens, and I look out for the best interest for a diverse community of the city of St. Louis. And it's not always an easy job. My skill set comes from having been in accounting and finance my entire career, starting out in in private industry. I worked for Brown Shoe Company, and Brown Shoe Company gave me a great base in private industry, and then I worked for the state of Missouri as an auditor at one time, and it gave me a great base. I worked for higher education at one time in my career. I worked for the May Company at one time in my career, and so I have a very diverse career. I worked for the St. Louis Circuit Court for 8 years. It's also a state agency, and so I have a great background in my area. And I'm very serious about my area. I've always been serious. And as an elected official, I'm a public official, and I'm accountable, and I take being accountable very seriously.
Thank you very much. You know, I think, Rhonda, for you, I really have to ask something about the tornado, and I think I have this right. You had just left work. I believe you were out to dinner with your husband and perhaps friends. And I know this part because I was out of town, as I mentioned earlier. My sister said, the airport director, what was that outfit she had on? She had a split over here. Anyway, she came right from dinner with her husband immediately to the airport. Talk to us a little bit about you, as much as anybody here, live constantly in the public eye. I mean, I don't think there's a day that we're not seeing in the news something related to the airport, good and bad. But talk to us a little bit about that experience of really being thrown instantly into really a media firestorm, what you kind of learned from that, and maybe kind of a perspective you have going back, looking back.
You know, I think that for me, having always worked in operations in my life in the airline industry, you're used to responding 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I had 27 years of training that when something happened, and it always happens on a holiday, it always happens, and you know,
at midnight.
At midnight,
yeah.
And so you sort of train yourself to just be prepared constantly for that. So that was helpful. You know, obviously when the tornado hit that day, because we debated about going to dinner. We were celebrating a dear friend's birthday, and we were at Brio, and there was 8 couples, and I said to my husband, you know, I had beeps all day and kind of watching the weather, and I said, but we'll, you know, if I need to go, I'll need to go if it gets. And so we were sitting at the table, and it was kind of funny because they kept saying, oh my God, just turn that thing off. And I said, well, you can't, you know, I need to know what's going on. So when the young man called from the operations center, and you know, I was sitting at the table, and it was kind of noisy, so I got up, and I said, okay, we just got hit by what? He said, we got hit, you know, and I said, okay, we got hit by what? You know? that might help. And he said, the tornado. And, you know, I said, okay, I'm on my way. So I grabbed my husband, and I said, the airport was hit with a tornado, and we just left. And all the friends were like, huh, what? You know? But you don't ever think twice, because that is your responsibility. And for me, not being there would have been letting down the team. How can I expect them to drop their lives on a holiday weekend? And we have sort of a standing rule at the airport. And if you're in the operational end, not so much maybe if you're in you know, the finance end or if you're in administration, but if you're in the operational end of things, if something happens, you drop it and you come out. And that's just the expectation. And we talk about it all the time because we are a public utility. We are required to serve the public and to be open. So you build it into your lifestyle that at any given moment, you know that that's what you may have to do. I was actually pleased that I was in town, you know, and I learned a long time ago, you never take vacations on holidays if you're at an airport or airlines, you just don't. So I was grateful that I was in town and so close. And so I think getting up there that night, and I'm one of those that react all the time and believe that you just got to step right in and move on. So for me, having been still fairly new in this job, you know, my instinct is we got to tell the public what's going on. We got to live, you know, very factual, and everything's got to be in order. And I've got a lot of people around me saying, well, let's think about it. Let's think about what, you know, we're going to say, or let's think it. And I'm thinking, no, we need to let people know. So having, you know, knowing the industry, knowing what you're doing, really helps when you're in a public spotlight like that, and you're confident enough that you know the operation, you know your people. And so when they say, this is what we've got, this is a challenge here, this is a challenge here, this is a challenge here, you know that that's the facts, and they're as truthful as you can be. So here's what we're facing, here's what we're going to do, and here's how we're going to fix it. And so I think it ended up being a very good decision to be that upfront and to do those press conferences so quickly and so frequently. And they are a pain in the butt because, you know, you do have to make sure that you're cognizant of what you say. And if someone asks you a stupid question, not give them a look like, oh, please. So yeah, that took a while for me to learn. I learned. And I did have my husband call me Saturday after about the 5th one, and he said, you got a little short with that reporter. Okay, thank you, dear. But I think it's so important when you're in a public job like that, that the public trust you, and that when you come on and you say, here's what we're facing, if we had put out things that weren't the whole picture or things that seemed unrealistic, they would have picked up on that. And then you lose all credibility, and you have no way to ever gain that back, in my opinion. So I think that's probably the best thing I learned from that weekend, and we were very factual, and we were very public, and we were out there constantly. and let the world see what was going on, the good and the bad. And we had a good story in that we had no life lost, we had no serious injuries. And that helped us to get over the emotional piece of grief, or any of us at the airport having lost a family member or knowing someone. So, you know, we're grateful for that. But I think we learned a lot that weekend about how important the media is, and you know, you can't shy from them in something like this. And if you don't open up and be honest and factual with them, you'll lose the respect. And I think they'll report something, whether it's what you want or not. So why not give them the facts to report?
Thank you very much. I think that'll, you know, there's always defining moments in our careers, but certainly for you, that's going to be certainly one of them. Darlene, I'm going to ask you a question. You know, from time to time, people say, "Why don't you gonna run for mayor?" Now, I'm not going to ask you that question. Okay, I'm enough of a friend. I'm not going to ask that question.
Yeah.
But you are in a position that you've been observing the city for a long time, and really our region. I'll put it in a more global way. Just give us some insight. I think you've got a unique perspective. You're in some rooms that most of us are not in. Just kind of, give us a little bit of your sense of the state of St. Louis right now. How do you see it?
Well, that's a very interesting question. St. Louis is a city that's dear to my heart. I was born and raised here. I went to all my schools here, high school and college. I went to Washington University. St. Louis has grown, yet it has remained a very nice, quaint, lovely, small, big city. And I say it like that because I've traveled a lot, East Coast, West Coast, and I have been gone, I guess, up to like 10 days at a time, and I yearn for the greenery that we have in the Midwest, right here in St. Louis. I yearn for that when I'm on the West Coast, and I love St. Louis. St. Louis looks different downtown than it did 10 years ago. It is a vibrant downtown. It always has been a city that has been growing, even though at a much slower pace than some other U.S. cities. We have a great credit rating as the city's comptroller. I talked about you know, protecting the city's credit in 2008, May of 2008. We received an A+ credit rating, and that means that we are above you know, some other credit grades. And what it also means is that we had not had an A+ credit rating in over 35 years. And so we achieved that. That gives developers a sense of confidence to develop in St. Louis. So that's why you can continue to see development throughout the city and not in just one place. You see the universities, St. Louis U and Washington University, as well as the University of Missouri, deciding to do things right in the city and all around the region. Kathy's over the RBC and all of those small companies, they are constantly looking for opportunities in the region, but they also particularly look in St. Louis because they know that we are a well-run city on some areas. But then, of course, the Wall Street Journal just reported that we were the 7th worst-run city in the nation. That was like last month they reported that. But however, they said, but they manage their finances very well. So I was glad to see that line. That one line made all the difference to me, and I said, we'll keep on pushing because we are a great city. We have a low cost of living compared to other cities around, and we are a state that we're surrounded by 7 other states, and what that means for the city of St. Louis is that we have a lot of Cardinal fans and other ball and sports fans for our Blues and for our football that come from 7 surrounding states, and that's great because you know, you ask any Cardinal management, they'll tell you that they don't depend on the folks in the city proper to come to the games. They're looking at people from 7 states to come into St. Louis on a regular basis to see all of those games that are played right here in the city of St. Louis. And that's just a great thing because that says that we're a great sports town, not only for baseball, but for hockey and football. That's, you know, we have the best fans by far in the whole nation. And that's, you can ask anybody. You know, when it's time to wear red, we're wearing red. When it's time to wear blue, we're going to wear our blue. And so the city of St. Louis has a great outlook, you know, as far as the future, not only for businesses, continue to grow its businesses, but continue to grow its population. We're happening. You know, to put it, and I guess I can't sell a city as good as Kitty can.
Oh, you're doing pretty well, darling.
But we have, you know, probably more free entertainment than almost any city in the world. You know, you can go to a free zoo, free museums, and not only just one free museum, but several free museums. And then if you got to pay a fee to see some of the exhibits, it's a very small fee. And the libraries are state of the art. We're going to reopen our downtown Central Library soon, and it's going to be just fabulous. And you know, you'll find some of the best happening things with the Science Center and other areas throughout the city. So, you know, if you got folks that live out of the city of St. Louis that are looking for a better quality of life, to work, play, and live, this is the place. And we'll welcome them with open arms.
So what you're really saying is, yes, you're thinking about running for mayor.
Well, being a comptroller is not a bad place to hold the purse strings.
Well, when Kitty came, there was a lot that had to be changed, and I mentioned that. And pretty quickly, she was a new gal in town, which is not always an easy thing to do. And she realized there was lots of things she had to take on. She had to modernize, for lack of a better term, the relationship with the unions. She had to take a look at the minority contracting and see really what that was all about and where were we doing what we needed to be and where we do need more. She had to look at the marketing department and say, we're not doing the same thing that's going to get us where you need to go.
Right.
But it was really tough. I don't know if it was like 3 months of a honeymoon, but it seemed to me you showed up at all this stuff. And she had people trying to shut down the convention center, calling vendors all over the country, telling them not to come. And she had minority contractors who depend on the convention center coming to her and saying, you've got to do something about this. So it was tough, and you were in the media. There's a lot of different opinions. We're a union town, and so tell us, as a woman, what was that all like? I mean, what was it like going through that? Because my observation was you stood firm, you knew what you needed to do, and you worked your way through it. But there had to be other things going on. So give us a little insight into that.
Yeah, not much sleep, I can tell you that. Stressing about, was I doing the right thing? And, you know, at the end, was I going to have, were people going to have my back when I stood out there to do things, you know? And so there were many things that needed to be done. One of the things is, you know, I walked in the convention center like 3 days before I started and looked around and went, oh my gosh, it looks like a hospital or a prison. It doesn't look like a welcoming, warm place where people are going to have a great sense of St. Louis. And so I went to the comptroller, said, help. And so, I mean, that was one of the things that we needed to do, was to put a better face on our community for people who were coming for conventions. And you know, face it, when you're here for 3 or 4 days for a convention, for a big convention that's going to be in the convention center, you're going to spend most of your time in the convention center. So if the convention center doesn't properly showcase the community, that whatever condition the convention center is in, that's what you think St. Louis, that's the kind of condition St. Louis is in. So that was a big thing that we had to do, and the comptroller was, I can't even tell you how extraordinarily helpful she's been, because it's transformed. Oh, yeah. The conventions we had a big convention here in August of people who make decisions about conventions for their own organizations. And so they were coming in from around the country, and we were walking around, and people were saying, how new is this convention center? It's like 1977 new. But it looks great. So that was one of the things. That was, you know, how did the building look? But then how does the building operate? And, you know, as Kathy said, the building opened in 1977, and times were very different in 1977, but a lot of the operations within the convention center hadn't changed since that time. And so we needed to make a lot of changes that were very difficult. You know, it's very difficult to change the way you do something, especially when you've been doing it for a very long time. And so I had to know first of all, I had to go to my board and say to them, these are the things that we need to do. Are you with me? Fortunately, I have a very good board. So they said, yes, we're with you. And there's one thing, you know, people say they're with you, but then when the shots start coming at you, are they going to be ducking? Or are they really going to be with you? And you never really know until you test it. And fortunately, they were with me. Our mayor was with me. Our county executive was with me. Because you know, when you do those kinds of things and people don't like it, and you're the new girl in town and you're a woman, they view you as, you know, pretty easy to take down, and so they're gonna try to go around you. And so they went to the mayor and they went to the county executive, and the mayor and the county executive said, no, we're with her. We understand you, we appreciate what you're saying, we hear what you're saying, but we've really heard her, and this is about the economy of our community going forward, and you know, you need to make some changes. And so we got those things done. But you can only, you can be a person who's got an idea and who's going to jump out in front to get it done. But if you do it recklessly, if you do it without understanding that you've got all the stakeholders, or as many of the key stakeholders anyway, with you, then there's no point, because they are going to go around you and they're going to figure out a way to take you down. And you know, I didn't care about me. I could, you know, if I had to get another job, I could get another job. That wasn't it. We had to do the right thing for St. Louis. And the only way we were going to be competitive was to make these changes, whether it was to physically change the convention center, or whether it was to change the way that we operated, or whether it was to change how we were marketing. And that was difficult. Jen Holenkamp is here. Jen is our Director of Marketing. She got an award today at lunchtime from the St. Louis Area Attractions Association. She got their Spirit Award, and she does a great job, and we have a great marketing department now. But we had some challenges when I got there, and you know, change is hard, but we've been able to do it.
Rhonda, as you know, I was Vice Chancellor of University of Missouri St. Louis for a number of years, and what I learned from that position as a public institution is you can think when you're driving into work you know what you're going to do that day, but any student, any parent, anybody in the community can change your day completely, because everybody thinks they know about education. And I think aviation's the same way, because everybody's been in an airport or seen a plane on TV, so everybody really knows. So, and I know because I'm an airport commissioner, so I get all these people calling me, and who do I call her?
So does Kitty.
So they call me and I call her. Question, in some ways it might look like, well, what a glamorous job. It's the airport. Isn't that exciting? What an industry. How do you really, I think you're more public now than you were when you were head of American Airlines. But you know, how do you handle all that? How do you keep yourself knowing what you need to do and doing it when every day you got all kinds of people, and often people complain, just this is human nature, I think, more than they call and say, aren't you just doing wonderful? Or my flight came in on time, I'm so happy. Just a little bit, particularly if there's any aspiring people to be in the public sector, what's that like to have those kind of calls coming in all the time?
Well, you know, I think the first thing you have to realize is that usually if you listen to the majority of the calls that come in, whether they're complaints or suggestions or inputs, at the end of the day, you'll always find something that's valuable, that if you hear it enough or you hear it enough in different ways, you can actually make some changes that are positive. So you have to learn and you have to understand, we were, as an airport, I think, for a long time, we did not involve the public. Even though we're a public utility and it was so critical to the region, I think we as an airport chose to say, we know what we're doing and we're going to run it, and that's just the way it is. So when the mayor and I talked about this job and if I were to take this role, I said to him, we need to be much more public. People don't understand the airport. And I remember the mayor saying to me, you have to be careful with being too public because, you know, then people will think they know everything and they'll want to tell you. And I said, but at the end of the day, if they don't know how it functions, how it works, and I don't know what the public is thinking, we're never going to move it forward. Very similar to what Kitty had. You have to involve the business and the leaders in this community and the public if you want them on your side. And so if you go with that thought in mind, and you know, I told a number of organizations, including Kathy's, and including RCGA and Civic Progress, that anytime you need me to talk, call. I'll be happy to come and talk about the airport. What's good, what's not good, what we need to do, what we need to change. And you know, Jeff laughed at me the other day, my PR person, because he said, I just started my 3rd year, and he said, this is your 100th. Today I spoke at the, when she got the award. It was my 101st speaking in 3 years. So, you know, and that's been great. Now with that comes the challenges of people saying, oh, she's open, I'm gonna call her, or I'm gonna email her, and that's okay. But you have to respond to each one as well. You cannot blow those people off. You cannot just say, well, that's irrelevant. What a stupid question. Even if it is, it doesn't matter. What you find most of the time is if you respond and take the minute and say, you know, we're looking at a lot of things. That's one of the facets. There's some good ideas there. Maybe we can't do this particular thing, but, you know, maybe we can do this. What you get is a buy-in from the community. And when you have an entity like the airport that you're responsible for, if you don't have that buy-in, you're never going to move it forward. So for the 2 or 3, you know, times a day that you get called and you say, oh, God, do I want to take this call? Taking it because it'll save you hours on the other end of the cycle when they run to the mayor or when they run, you know, to Charlie Dooley and say, you know, I really don't think this is what we should be doing at the airport. So you know, it's a balance you learn, that the more educated the public is and understands the value and the business and what you're trying to do, the stronger the input will get too. I mean, I can remember getting calls from Kitty, you know, like, I remember them too, saying, you know, Kathy, can you change the toilet paper? You know, okay. Okay, yeah, didn't think that was on my list today.
We learned a lot, though. A lot. Yeah.
So now you get people calling and offering really, really good suggestions or input that says, look, I'm handicapped, and you know, I had a struggle this week. I had nowhere to go, or we had changed our chemical product, and we had a lot of falls this week, including someone who called Kitty and said, what is going on? And you know, you look at those things. Had we not known, or had we not heard the public feedback, we probably would continue to use that chemical. As of today, we don't. We use a new chemical. So you look at all the good things that come out of those suggestions and that input, and then you look at the people saying, you know, she listens, or she will at least give us the time of day, and that, at the end of the day, will buy you mountains of trust and mountains of benefits coming back.
Rhonda, let me stay on with you a second. The Comptroller and I we've said this, we sit on the airport commission, and one of the things that I think we never really talked about this, but our questions would indicate, we look at the contracting that the airport does and where those contracts go, and we ask questions about minority contracting and women and what percent and who are they. I'm kind of been known for the person I sort of turn around and say, and is the owner here? I mean, I really want to know who are these people that we are letting these contracts to. The part you probably don't know is they actually manage the minority contracting for the city of St. Louis, and I mentioned that in case any small business owners here don't understand how the process works. Just say a word or two about some of the issues and challenges. I think you've done some really good things now to bring that office where it needs to be.
Well, for anyone who is a women-owned business or a minority-owned business to get certified, I think there's been this perception out there, and probably rightfully so, that it's an awful process, it's unfair, it's timely, and is it even worth me doing? At the end of the day, I will tell you it's absolutely worth you doing, because we are required to have 5 and 25, which is under the mayor's executive order that says 25% of any businesses at the airport have to be an MBE, which is a minority-based enterprise, and 5% have to be a WB, a women-based enterprise. So your opportunity to have business come your way, irregardless of what you may be in, whether you are in janitorial or cleaning or marketing or engineering, it doesn't matter. You will be on a list that says, here's our list of providers for that particular type of product that are either minority or women-owned. So I would encourage all of you to go that route if you haven't been certified. We have done a lot of things in the past couple of years to streamline the process. We do a lot of classes. We do them mostly at the community colleges throughout the region. We've done them at Merrimack, at Harris Stowe, at Forest Park, at I'm trying to think where all we've done them, where we actually have our staff, which is, we call it the DBE staff, the Disadvantaged Business Entrepreneur staff. They go out and they say, here's what you're going to need. If you're going to go through this process, here's what you're going to need. You're going to need this, 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 and this. Here's the timeline. Here's how it's done. And they're out there, you know, we've become more of a proactive group trying to educate, you know, men and women that this isn't that difficult of a process. The perception, you know, is out there, but there's opportunity for people. And we are always looking, and there are certain fields that are very, very limited when you're trying to find minority or women-owned businesses as part of your participation. So we are always looking to grow that list and to strengthen it. And once you're certified, you know, it covers, as Kathy said, it covers the city. A lot of times it covers even...
We use your list.
And so do lots of other organizations in town. There's no charge to get certified. You just have to, you know, sort of know the process and what it is. And I encourage you, we publish these classes on our website, flystlouis.com, but we also publish them within the community college systems and stuff where they're going to be. But they're well worth taking just to kind of dispel that myth that it's a daunting task. We have a staff that is great to work with and that are more than willing to help you know, wherever they can to get the process underway. And it takes about 60 days. I mean, it does, there's a review board, there is a lot that goes into it from our end, but it is so important that we continue to grow that list of both MNWBE business owners so that we can broaden our base. When a company comes, here's a perfect example. This summer we've had lawn mowing at the airport for years. Now we own, you know, 4,000 acres of land and, you know, 2,500's outside the airfield. So it has to be mowed. Well, you know, I don't hire my own staff to mow it, so we look for a contractor to come and do that. It's been the same contractor for many, many, many years. And every year we come back and say, you need some participation because there's never any participation. He says there is none out there. And so we pull our list and lo and behold, yes there is. Here's about 4 or 5 different contractors. He said, I've tried them all, they're no good. Okay, well, first you said there weren't any, now you've tried them all. And we said, well, stop. And we stopped. And our grass got a little high at the airport, and if you live in Bridgeton or St. Anne, we had a few complaints coming in saying, what is going on? And I said, we're working through a contracting issue, but we need participation. And the minority participation came on because finally this individual saw that they weren't going to be a part of this contract, and done a phenomenal job, and it's providing work to a great small business owner who's just thrilled to have it, doing a wonderful job. And so, you know, you have to take a stand sometimes, kind of like Kitty said. Sometimes you know it's going to be rough, but the grass is 2 feet tall. Yes, we're not mowing. Here's why. And we'll get it mowed when we can, but, you know, we need to work through this process. But we are very, very supportive and absolutely committed to growing our WNMBE. So it's a great process.
You know, one thing that you might hear, I remember a day at the University of St. Louis, I was in my office, and I was kind of looking across the campus, I had a million things to do, and I realized all of a sudden, you know what? I had enough influence that I really could do some things that I thought were really important. In this case, it had to do with diversification of boards and more involvement. And I guess I would say, as you hear the people really talking here today, they're not hired to be advocates for women or hired to be advocates for minority. But on the other hand, as we all move along in our career, we have that ability. And I would say, if you're in a spot and you're not figuring out ways to support other women up and down the chain, I just think it's one of those very, very critical things, particularly for people in jobs like these. And I know many of you, I suspect, are in similar kinds of jobs where it may be there are more men than women, and or more historically that men would do those jobs. So questions, let's open up for some quick questions from people. I don't see anybody at the microphone, but somebody's got to get some questions here. Questions?
Oh, come on. They said this was a lively audience.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I don't think I need a microphone.
Yeah, great.
I'm curious, you guys, how do you create balance in your personal life? What do you do and how do you escape? Kitty's laughing. She probably
Kitty doesn't have a personal life.
None. Well, actually, it's funny, Maggie, that you asked that because Rhonda and I were talking about it. She was at the St. Louis Attractions Association lunch where Jen was getting her award today, so she missed Diane Sullivan's remarks, and she was asking me about Diane, and I said, she was great. She said, first you take care of yourself, then you take care of your family, third comes work, and fourth comes community. I go, you don't have our job. Community, number 1. Job, number 2. It's kind of the other way around. I think I have a good balance, but you know, that works for me. It probably wouldn't work for a lot of other people. You're a much better balanced person than I am, so is Darlene.
Darlene, you're recently married in the last couple of years, sort of a whole new dimension in your life. What kind of respond, how do you balance all that?
I think I have to say I've got interests that are easy like music, like travel, and some of my job duties give the opportunity for some travel. So I sometimes tack on a day just to see some things and sites that I would like, and sometimes I tack on my husband. You know, and thank you, and that kind of provides that balance, you know, work and then my own personal interests. I try to take care of myself and that kind of thing. So it works itself out if you put the things first that you know you have to put first. And for me, I've been single for so many years, and the focus has been my job for so many years, and I still have to keep that focus because I represent so many people in the public eye, and I'm in the public eye, and my husband's in the public eye, and so the balance comes as we, you know, grow together.
Rhonda, has there been any difference since you've come? I mean, as you said, you're on a call anytime now. How has that been with your husband and your children?
You know, I was naive when I was young. So we got married. I was 25, and you know, I got pregnant probably 4 months after we got married because we wanted 4 children. We have 3, but so I got pregnant very quickly. Had kids. Always had a career. And you know, I think at 25 you're just stupid, and you think, you know, this is what everybody does, right? You know, you work all the time, you come home and you work all the time, and you're happy about it, and you find a way to make it work. And so, and my kids are all just like me, except for I have one like my husband who's very laid back. But we found balance because my husband is the opposite. He is very laid back, and you know, he's a great dad. So he does a lot of the things that typically I would have done. And so when the kids said, Dad, can you take off the day and go on the field trip? He said, sure, I'll take off. Well, I couldn't because I had this or this. So we found that nice balance and, you know, worked it out over the years. And I think now as the kids got older, it's kind of fun because much like Darlene, you know, you can sort of involve them a little bit more. If you've got something, unfortunately, my daughter was going to come today, but she's working now. She graduated from college, and so she had to go to Louisville for her job. But you can bring them to things and involve them in other ways. And in the evenings, which we spend a lot of evenings at places, I always say to my husband, here's the schedule for the week. Pick what you want to come to. I ain't going to that. Okay, fine. You know, so he'll come to this. He'll say, who's going to be there? So he's got to know other, you know, spouses or other people. And so you give them the opportunity to say, what do you want to do that I'm a part of this week? And if you don't want to do it, that's okay. And I think you really have to have that open communication line that says, you know, it's okay if you don't want to go. If you want to go, I'd love to have you. So you do learn.
That kind of worked for me with my son, but I very distinctly remember he was about 10, 11, sort of that age. And it was actually Shamel's re-election party. And I said, guess what we're going to do tonight? And he had gone to all these things with me, you know, just gone along, you know. And I said, the mayor got reelected and we're going to go to his election party. And he looked at me and he said, what would ever make you think that? And I knew in a whole year.
I think one thing you have to find is you can't feel guilty about it. If there are times when there's nothing more I want to do than take a day off on Wednesday when I know I have no kids and my husband's working, and I'll go to the Four Seasons Spa. And if I have to spend $150 to do that, I don't feel guilty about that because that may be what I need to rejuvenate myself. So I think, you know, I disagree with that. I mean, we have spent a great life with 3 kids. My husband and I have both always worked in very demanding jobs. The kids are normal, you know, they're you know, one's graduating from college now, one's already graduated, one's at SLU High graduating this summer. So, you know, I look at it and say it is. Now, it's not without a lot of work, but I think you also have to get over that guilty feeling that I have to be at everything, every minute of every day, because you can't. And there's other things that you, and for those who don't want to, that's fine too. Don't look down on anybody. If they want to be a stay-home mom or dad, I think that's great. That wasn't what I wanted to do. So you have to get over that guilty feeling, or if you need a day away where you don't want them around, that's okay too, to go do something for yourself that sort of rejuvenates you.
Yeah, good answer to that. It's not easy. And for me, I very distinctly remember, I came up during there where there wasn't a lot of exceptions. Nobody said, well, oh, yeah, sure, you've got to do carpool, then just go leave early. I had to figure all that stuff out. Yeah. But I did learn some things. And frankly, I didn't go to the symphony. I didn't do a lot of stuff on the weekends except family stuff. So, I mean, there was those, but those are things I gladly made sacrifices on. But it is interesting now in the year of work-life balance. I mean, nobody really talked about work-life balance.
Right.
And now in the year of work-life balance, to then be, probably some of you are managers of both men and women, and the men come in and say, oh, by the way, my wife said I'm the person to pick up the kids today, so I'll be leaving at 3 o'clock to go pick them up. And I'm sitting here thinking, oh my God, how does this all happen? I'm not covering for the guys. But that is a different era and a different time. And some people are in companies where that works and they make those allowances. Some of you aren't, and that's another kind of life decision, which where are you going to put it? I would say public office is not the best place for that kind of thing.
Right.
It's the nature of it. We have 5 minutes, sure. Any questions? Any questions? Yes, please.
So I think it's an interesting conversation that we always ask women that question, but we never ask men that question. My question was, you are all incredibly smart. And so can you talk about any challenges you've had being a smart woman? So was it intimidating for the men that were with you and around you, and how you overcame that challenge?
Darlene, you go.
I'll go first because that is a really good question, and the answer from my perspective would be that as the quote-unquote CFO and public official, it's kind of dangerous to put yourself out there as the one with the answer. And when I say that, I from my own way of doing things, I'm a very good listener, which is one of the things that I bring as a strength. And so I listen well, and when and I'm also very results oriented and have the answer when I have it, you know, real strong about it. And so I don't try to then topple and use language that it gets over and above whatever man in the room is there. I want everything that they have to be on the table and to be right there. But when I'm ready, I like to part the waters and just go straight through with what I want to happen and have happen. And so I like to do that in a way that is respectful. And, you know, we put everything on the table, and then we look around and we say, now which one is going to work well? And when I know that I'm right, I have done my homework, and I have gotten the right experts and the right stakeholders so that I know that it's not going to be me 9 out of 10 times even giving the answer, but it's going to be something that is from me and well supported by the people who it matters to. And so I think, and I guess I said all that to say, we have to be smart about how we as women get things done as opposed to always trying to get credit for it. Because if it's about the people that you represent and not about you, and you know that it has to happen in order for, you know, your project or whatever you have to go forward, then you got to get it done. And that's your bottom line. And so you use what you have to use to get it done. And I like to do it the right way. And so that's the most successful way, instead of trying to get my name out there. A lot of times you don't even hear my name associated with things. For example, did you know that the city of St. Louis employees were going to be on furlough, and Kitty probably lost a day because she already had gone on her furlough days. But when the St. Louis Cardinals won the World Series, they post series, they were playing in the post games. Every game, the city was going to get $900,000, and guess who reminded the mayor? It was me. And so he was so glad to jump out front and get the credit. But I was like, you know, they were saying, well, Darlene, what does this mean to you? I said, gee, it means no furloughs for city employees, you know. And that's what the World Series meant to me at that point. But that just goes to show you what a powerful way to help someone without getting recognition.
Despite what you see today with a large number of women at a conference, there still exists a bit of an old boys club. I mean, it's still, you know, that's not going to go away anytime soon. But I mean, things have changed, and they've changed dramatically. But there are still a lot of environments that all of us go into where we're the only woman there, and we can be excluded. And it's easy sometimes for people to try to go around us and exclude us. But having said that, I will tell you that growing up in this business, there weren't really women in the position that I'm in. There were men, and they were mentors to me. So while there are always some of those guys that, that the change comes hard to, I learned my craft mostly from men. And so, I try to ignore those few times when that annoying thing happens and you're excluded, and really, focus on all of the men who have helped me get to the place that I've gotten to. And hopefully, when there are more women in these kinds of positions that we have, we're helping people within our organizations who are women make their way up too.
I would echo that with Kitty. I had a male mentor as well, and he actually, when I was with TWA, I eventually became the vice president for the North American operation. And the guy that I replaced 20 years earlier, I almost left the company. And he had me in his office, and he said, "Why would you do this?" And I said, "Well, we were merging at the time between Ozark and TWA, and I had moved up really quickly and felt like, I was going to take this step back, and 26, you have an ego, and you think, And so he called and he said, "Why would you not take this job?" And I said, "Well, because I'm already doing this." And he said, "You're 26 years old." And he said, "You've got such great potential." He said, "You just need to prove yourself at a company that's 3 times the size of the one that just bought your company. And you'll do that, but you've got to give yourself a chance." And he was a great mentor to me. And when he retired, I replaced him. And those, literally 17 years, he was always there, and I knew I could always go to him. But I think there are enough people out there who aren't intimidated by someone who can be smart and who can be aggressive, as long as you don't come across that way. It's to stand up and know your business is a good thing. To be able to say with confidence, I can do that, or I know what that is, or to be able to relate to all aspects. And I do think it's important to learn your business, whatever it is, from top to bottom. If you really want people to respect you, you can be the smartest person in the world, but if you don't know your business, people will see that. And so it's okay to go out and work, in my case, on the ramp for a while to learn what they do, or to work beside the custodial staff to see what a day is like with them. And there's nothing wrong with that, but know your business, and then I think people will look at you not as intimidating, but somebody who just is good at what they do.
Well, I hope you found this as interesting as I did. I really want to thank Darlene and Rhonda and Kitty for taking your time and kind of being open to whatever questions might come your way, and to really thank all of you for your attention and being here. And I hope it was valuable to each of you as well. And I guess I want to say, for those of us who work in public service, it can be a very, very rewarding career. It's very demanding, but at the end of the day, you go to bed, you're really doing, you're doing something important for society. So thank you very much for your attention.